Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of Choose Happy. We're so glad. Hopefully, if you were not with us in person last week, you were able to listen to the recording and got the emails. I know I've had a few people looking for the emails. That's awesome. Keep contacting me if you can't find what you're looking for. We don't want you to miss out on this little bit of happiness and joy for your week. And I thought I would start the week or the meeting again. Let's read the verse that we're talking about, because I just think it is something that we do need to keep at the top of our minds here. This is where we're focused this time. So it's Philippians 4, verse 8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And I love that verse. And I've used it multiple times with the children this past week. And Marcy, it was so much fun last week to kick off with the what is true. And I think you gave us some great words of wisdom to think about. And so I'm assuming this week we're going to do what is honorable.
We are going to talk about what is honorable, but I'd like to start out by asking you, who are you? Because that was the journaling prompt last week, right? Would that be okay, Heidi? If we go back,
it'd be wonderful.
Who are you? What did you come up with that is not a noun? So we're not using titles like mom, daughter, sister. I want to hear, who are you? So some of the things I wrote down: I am energetic, I am exuberant, I am creative. Who are you? Would anyone like to share what you came up with?
Well, it took me all week to figure out verbs that described what I was. But some of the ones I did, and I'm not a drawer, so I'm glad we don't have to show this stuff. I sow seeds. I read books. I play music, and I cook and bake.
Beautiful. I love that.
And loves family. Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Who else started to share? Was that you, Peggy?
Yeah. I did a lot of thinking on it, and the one I feel like I'm a lot of things, but the one that finally came out to me is I am enough.
Ooh.
It's like, I just, I'm always feeling like, oh, I'm not doing enough for them. But what I do, I am enough.
You are enough. Beautiful. Yep. Thank you, Peggy. Love that one. How about one more person want to share?
Well, I talked to my husband last night, and I shared with him that it was so easy for me when I started this exercise to think of all of the negatives, and I wouldn't allow myself to put them down. And so then I looked up I did a Google search for verbs that describe who you are. And I took that list and selected things out of that list that I thought I was.
Perfect.
So, and he affirmed that, which was wonderful to me, that he says, I don't know why you always have to self-deprecate,
Oh, we do. Would you like to share some of them that you wrote down?
Oh my goodness, I have a page full.
How about choose two or three?
I am thankful. I am calm. I am resourceful. I am gentle. I am competitive. But I agreed with Peggy when it was all done. At the bottom, I put, I am enough.
Love that.
Yeah, me too.
It's wonderful.
Oh, yes. That might have to be the title of a next class or something. I am enough. That is so powerful. Well, one of the thoughts that I thought we'd open with today's discussion on is if you've ever felt envious of cattle. Now, I know some of you are in farming communities. Have you ever looked out at the cattle and felt envious? I've never thought to feel envious of cattle. But Walt Whitman, American poet Walt Whitman, said that I sometimes envy the cattle that graze contentedly in a meadow because they never worry or dwell on troublesome thoughts. You ever felt like that? I cannot remember ever feeling envious of cattle, but I do recall when I was teaching elementary school, coming home at night and thinking about my students and worrying about the next day and being consumed with all the thoughts and thinking, I wish I had a job at the grocery store where I just scanned items and then I went home. And I'm sure that the people who worked at the grocery store at that time scanning items also went home with thoughts on their mind. But to me, that seemed like it would be less consuming. And so I somewhat can relate, I guess, to what Walt Whitman is saying here. I share that with you because today's word that we're going to focus on is that honorable piece. And so we're talking about taking our thoughts captive as we study this and choose to be happy. So I wanted to introduce you a little bit to the background of the word honorable. So in the Greek, which is the original, right, the Hebrew Greek translation of this part of scripture, this word is actually semnos, and it means reverend or divine things. So to think on reverend or divine things, things that are worthy of reverence. Some translations will say other words. So the NIV translation says noble. Others say lovely. Some say honest. So all of these words come from that original translation of the original Greek word of semnos, which, so lovely, noble, honorable, or honest. I looked each of those up to get definitions so that we could kind of come up with what they all have in common. So honorable is a title of distinction. Having fine qualities is noble. Principles that are also of fine quality. Lovely, of course, is exquisitely beautiful. And honest is defined as being sincere or free of deceit. So this next word that we're looking at here, this honorable, noble, lovely, honest word, all of those definitions together, what does that speak to you? What does that mean to focus on things that are of that are reverend of divine things? You don't have to answer it. It's just a thought to put out there. Maybe you want to jot that question down and have time to journal on it this week. What does it mean to think on things that are honorable, noble, lovely, honest? So we're reminded that the Apostle Paul wrote this passage in Philippians to tell us to rejoice in the Lord. This is all about rejoicing, remember? And last night at church, we were doing a Bible study by Louis Giglio. And if you've never heard Louis Giglio, Google him and watch some of his YouTube videos. He's a wonderful teacher. One of the things that struck me was a statement he made that you cannot worship and worry with the same breath.
Mm-hmm.
You can't worship and worry with the same breath.
Marcy, can you spell his last name for me, please?
Yes, Giglio, Giglio. Mm-hmm. And then he also said that fear is having faith in the enemy. So last week we touched on oftentimes these thoughts that consume us, if they're not praiseworthy, if they're not positive, they are rooted in fear. So if fear is faith in the enemy, that's completely opposite of being reverend of divine things, which is today's word. This idea of being noble, honorable, lovely. So we're told in Philippians 4:7 that God guards our hearts, right? But it's still our job to focus on things that are pleasing to God. So God is going to do work, but he gives us work to do also. And so sometimes I think we get wrapped up in this idea that, well, God's just going to, if I'm blessed, he's just going to give me just positive things. Well, the truth is, we get to choose what we look at and what we focus on, just like we discussed last week. So it's our job, it's our work to choose to look at the things that are pleasing to God.
Marcy,
Yes.
when you read that statement of you cannot worship and worry in the same breath,
Mhm.
it immediately, it's like, it's a choice. It's a choice. Just like the Bible verse we're focusing on is that we're focusing on those things that are, praiseworthy. It's that it's a choice. If we focus on those things, I mean, that's it's a choice or focus. I mean, I keep hearing those words over and over. And I love hearing that in your message.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. It's so true, isn't it?
Mhm.
And so knowing that gives us great power. That gives us the ability to shift. When we find ourselves in that negative space, that space of worry, that space of fear or doubt, we have the power to shift. So what does it look like to worship? For some people, that's singing, dancing, praying, reading.
Sewing.
What's that, Marilyn?
Sewing.
Sewing. Yes, absolutely. Being creative can be very worshipful. Yes, thank you for sharing that. Anything else that says worship to you?
Oh, go ahead.
Being outside, digging in the dirt.
Yes. And that is sacred, to be in that, to be rooted and grounded literally in the earth. Heidi, what were you going to say?
Gathering with others, getting to spend time with other people.
Right. This is worship right here. What we're doing is church. This is church. And that's not to say don't go to your local church. That's a great thing to do. But this is church, when you're gathered together and you're worshiping and you're praising and you're learning. That's church, and supporting one another. Yeah. Such power in being in community. You might remember last week when we introduced this passage, we talked about these two women that were having an argument. I always say her name wrong. Udo. I said it this morning and now I can't say it again. It's Euodia. Eudia. I think that's how you say it. Eudia. Let's call her Eudia, right? We'll just say it with confidence. And Syntyche. Paul tells us that these two women, they were having some kind of disagreement, and he doesn't go into details, and I love that he doesn't, because that part doesn't matter, right? That's not what we focus on. He reminds them to focus on rejoicing and fellowshipping with Christ. Rejoice in the fellowship with Christ. And that result, BibleReference.com tells us that result should bring reasonableness to all of us. That when we are focusing on the fellowship that we share in Christ, it should bring a reasonableness to us. With a proper focus on positive things, we can experience peace. Proper focus on positive things, we can experience peace. What do you all think about that? Do you experience peace with a proper focus on positive things?
I hate to dominate these conversations, but I am a talker. So when it's not my turn, please tell me to be quiet. But I was having a conversation with my sister-in-law, and we were both having difficulties with a family member. And I reminded her of a mantra that I try to use, which is always assume positive intent.
Mhm.
And so often it's easy when people are, negative people, to go down that path with them, or go down that rabbit hole, as they say. And I always try and take a step back and try to consider where they're coming from, and always assume positive intent.
Like that. Yes. I've often used the phrase assume innocence, because all people have something that they're going through. And so assume innocence. Give them the benefit of the doubt. They might be having a bad day. They might be having a bad month. They might be having a bad life. Give them a break.
I think even in my daily routine, in those few minutes when I sit down and I focus on the positive, I pull out my devotional book, or I pull out my Bible, or I pull out a book that, some inspirational book. And that when I spend those few minutes, there is a peace. And even as I doodle, that's why I do it. It's very relaxing. I'm focused on something very specific. And there is a peace that comes, whether it be a physical peace, or sometimes like it just is peaceful in my brain. It helps my brain settle down. That I think is amazing.
Yes. Yes. In the study that we listened to last night, Louis Giglio talked about being put on antidepressants for a season in his life, and that he asked the doctor, what do these antidepressants, this anti-anxiety medicine that I'm on, what is it doing for me? And the doctor explained that it's like a computer's system. Your brain is like a computer system. And when we clean out our computer system, we call clearing the cache. It like wipes out the memory, right? So that there's more space to work faster. And that when you take this medication, it helps clear your cache in your brain so that your brain isn't overthinking things. And that was interesting to me. His point goes on to talk about that was a season that he needed that. And then he learned to find other ways to clear his cache. And that one of those things, like you mentioned, Heidi, could be being creative. It could be prayer. It could be worship. But finding a way for us to stop the thinking so that we can just be. Because let's be honest, ladies, especially as women, I know this group's open to anyone, but the people in front of me right now all appear to be women that I can see on my screen. Our brains don't stop, right? We have to make them stop. Doug and I once led a couples group with a book called Men Are Waffles, Women Are Spaghetti. And it talked about the actual science behind the way the brain works in men and women. And that in the male, the brain really works in boxes. So you've heard, thought process that when men are in their box, one box, they can't get out of the other. So it's true when they're watching a football game, they're really not thinking about us or anybody else or anything else. They're in that box, right? And they can do that. So when we ask a man, what are you thinking? And they say nothing, they truly can do that. We don't get that because we are spaghetti. We are a big plate of intertwined noodles that if we grab one noodle and we start talking about one topic, it could likely lead to something that happened 20 years ago, right? Because it's all intertwined. And so because we are that plate of spaghetti with all of those intersecting pieces, we really do have to stop our brains.
I love that. That's
Great.
That explains a lot. Right there.
It does. It really does.
A lot of conversations, right? Yeah. And I think that clearing our cache, that's a great metaphor for absolutely what we need to do.
Isn't it? Yeah. It's so good. So that would be maybe a good journal prompt also for this week, or a thought for you to have a goal. What do you do to clear your cache? What do you do to stop your thoughts? I know a lot of you are very creative. And so sewing or quilting or scrapbooking, working in the garden, being outside, taking a walk. A lot of people, it's exercise. I'm not a runner, but I have a daughter-in-law that is, and she finds great peace when she's running.
Marcy, can we step back to one of the earlier questions you posed for a journaling prompt?
Yeah.
And, as I'm listening to all this, and I've been trying to I keep coming back, you said, what is honorable? It's reverend.
Right.
Can honorable be a person?
Well, I think so, yes. In fact, when I was looking up definitions, honorable is a title of distinction. So it referenced judges, people that we would put into a title of distinction, set apart. So I think, yes.
Because it's funny when you were describing all those things, a particular couple kept coming up in my mind, and they have both left us at this point and are deceased, but in the years that we were part of their lives, he's a World War II veteran, a great mentor to my husband. She was a quiet but forceful person in our community to get our library going. And anyway, just you never wanted to meet her with a politician on the street, because she knew very well how gentle to get to those politicians. It was cute. But anyway, I just think of them as that they're worth honoring. They're noble. They were noble. They were humble. They were all sorts of those kinds of things. And so, as we think about honorable, last time you suggested, when we talked about who are we, to use verbs, not nouns. Is there anything like that with honorable?
Good question. I hadn't thought about that. What do you all think?
That's what I was saying. Can it be a person? You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking, what is, I'm just trying to think of even, things that are, so maybe somebody else has a thought on that as to what is honorable. Anyway, that's where I was kind of questioning.
Great question. I will reread the list of words, descriptors, and maybe it will trigger something for someone. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So here's what I have down. Reverend of divine things, title of distinction, worthy of reverence, exquisitely beautiful, fine qualities, principles, or ideas, sincere, free of deceit. I think that can be a person, a mentor.
Those are kind of like humble words to me.
I just Googled verbs that describe honorable, and it said decent, ethical, honest, just, noble, principled, respectable, righteous.
I like decent.
Don't we love Google?
Yes. It's a great tool.
Well, Marcy, as we think about wrapping up, because can you believe we're already 30 minutes into this? I would love, again, I know some people, we've gotten a few new people this week, so how about a quick introduction of everybody that is here, your name and where you're from, so that I think we're all in Iowa, but I'm not positive on that. So
Heidi, could I add one thing?
yes.
Your name, where you're from, and one descriptor.
Okay.
One verb.
Okay, perfect. Do you want me to call you out so you know? All right, let's go with Marilyn, because I know she's got her mute off. Marilyn.
Marilyn Lone, and I live in Robbins, Iowa. And my one word is compassionate.
Okay. All right, Carol.
Carol Schmidt, and I'm from Osage, Iowa. And my distinction is as I got to meet Heidi's grandma.
Love it.
Nice lady.
Yep. All right, Peggy.
I'm Peggy Frost. I'm from Cedar Falls, Iowa. Go Panthers. And I think I said before, I am enough, but I'm also funny and creative and happy. And so there's lots of them.
You might want to watch our unboxing today. Just saying.
Oh,
Just saying.
okay.
Okay. All right.
I do
Monica.
almost every time. So.
Oh, good. Good. Monica.
Oh, I'm Monica Lurson. I live near Shell Rock, and I put down fulfilled.
Nice.
That's a good word.
Mhm.
Very good. Julie, otherwise
My
known as
name-
Grandma on her screen.
Yep. I'm Julie McNair and I'm from Conrad. And I guess right now, I'm a survivor since I just lost my husband a week ago, or excuse me, a month ago. I have really had to step up. I've been a lumberjack. I've been a repairman. I've done things I didn't know that I could do. So I guess right now I'm just a survivor and persistent.
You are. Right. Susan. Susan, can you hear me? Did Susan scream? We'll come back to her. How about Sharon?
I'm Sharon Bunce and I'm from Ankeny, Iowa. And I think my descriptor is I am generous.
Go ahead. All right, Teresa. Oh, Teresa, you're on mute. Hold on. Get yourself off mute. Here, I'll ask you to. Can you get yourself off?
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Nope, we're still on mute. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, you might be able to do it.
Yeah, and I can ask her, but we'll come back to you, Teresa. Let's do Nancy.
I'm Nancy Galbraith and I'm from Atkins. And I guess my word would be, I'm a changing person right now. Recently moved to a new place. So a lot of things changing in my life right now to a new town. So I'm adapting to that.
Good. Susan, I know you've been playing with your mute and unmute. Yeah, can you hear me now? It's like her screen is frozen.
Yeah.
She's been in the exact same position. So I don't know that for some reason, Susan, we're not. We'll have to learn. Susan, if you can type in the chat, you can do it that way. Teresa, can you figure out how to get yourself off unmute? No?
Bottom left-hand corner.
Yep.
Or should say unmute.
You see the. Yep. All right. Well, and Susan is adding in the chat that her sound is breaking in and out, and she's from Olwine. But that's awesome, Susan. Thank you very much. And Teresa, I'll introduce you, Teresa Bartholomew. And I guess I don't know. Is it Tama? You're not quite over that direction, though. I don't think it's no. Oh, Waterloo. That's right. You're up farther that way. I forget which way you are. So anyway, well, everybody, Marcy, do we have any final thoughts as we wrap up today?
One thought, thinking is a gift. Thinking is a gift. We are called to have the mind of Christ. So think of that. Thinking is a gift. We're called to have the mind of Christ.
That is wonderful. Well, ladies, thank you very much for joining us. Again, you'll get a recap video of this in the next 24 hours. And we hope that you have a great day and a great rest of the week. So everybody, see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.